I am so excited to have Kara here with me today. She is a teacher, an author, and a friend of mine. Excited to have a conversation of what God is doing in her life, just the daily and an exciting new chapter for her. Welcome, Kara.
Thanks for having me.
I love to ask people where God is loving you lately. Where are you seeing him and experiencing him?
I really love that question because one of the things he has been working into me for a number of years is not just how incredibly powerful and winsome, compelling his love is, but if I'm not aware of that, if I'm not aware of where his love is in the present moment or in that present season, I'm going to miss out on a lot that he has for me. So I love that question because it shines the light on where in the present can I enter more deeply into the love of God. And one of the things that's actually been haunting me lately, I love the narrative. It's in all three synoptic gospels. It's the narrative of the rich young ruler. And he goes to Jesus. And I resonate so much with his eagerness, with his deep desire to know Jesus more, his all-in-ness, with like, how do I enter more deeply into kingdom life? And he's not afraid to ask the questions. But he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And all three synoptics, we know the story. Jesus tells him to sell all he has. And that makes him very sad. But Mark is the only one that includes this one little detail that I love. And I think it's Mark chapter 10. Jesus looked at him and loved him. And that one verse has haunted me probably over the last 9 months or so. I started looking at this beginning of the year, and this idea of being in the loving gaze of Jesus Christ. And not just when I think I'm doing great, but when something he has said has made me sad, or I'm aware of a deep flaw in my character, or when I wish circumstances were different. And so this idea that has become a practice of being, remaining, staying in the loving gaze of Jesus. What does his face look like for me? And even bringing specific things, like things about myself that I don't like, that maybe I see as a weakness, as a flaw, that he's actually said, no, that's part of your design. So bringing that into the loving gaze of Jesus, or bringing a relationship that I'm struggling with, bringing it before the loving gaze of Jesus and not moving away from that. So that's one thing that he's been inviting me deeper into. And what I find, which has been surprising and really good, is that as I sit in the loving gaze of Jesus, I'm changed. I mean, I'm not going to be the one to quantify or qualify how I'm changing, but I know that as I sit before him, I'm being transfigured. And I just love that his love does that for us. And I want more. I want more.
Yeah, we always should desire more. Yeah, I love the word that you use, transfigured. Yeah, I just got this beautiful picture of just a light and a beauty of where we should see ourselves. I know for me, it's always been clay in the potter's hands, of we can be reformed and molded into who he wants us to be daily with him in his love. And to always be open and surrendered to that is the best place to be. Refined by fire, the clay, the transfiguration, all of those things are so prominent for being loved by God And you don't necessarily know it instantly, but yeah, sitting with him in his presence and realizing I do daily feel different because I sit with him and filled by him.
Well, and one of the other implications of staying in the loving gaze of Jesus is that I think the idea, I don't know how good I am at it or not, but I think the idea is that as I sit before him in his loving gaze over me, I'm able to see myself in that way. Literally, when I look in the mirror, it's a loving gaze. And I'm also able to offer that to others. The loving gaze of Jesus reflected through my face because he dwells in me and he is transfiguring me. And so I think the idea that love is still incarnate in the believers of Jesus and that we can offer that loving gaze to the world and bring more of the kingdom. That's powerful.
Very powerful. Yeah. I love that so much, that we have the honor and the gifting to bring that glory to other people by loving well and by seeing his spirit and his life in other people and to bring it forward. As you can tell, my friend Kara is very versed in the Bible. She just recently got her PhD in biblical studies with an emphasis in New Testament, which is awe-inspiring for me and absolutely incredible. She's been teaching for 17 years as a college professor. And yes, she knows her Jesus and her God well through that. And it shows and it's beautiful. But because she has recently done this, I'm really curious and would love for you to share what that experience has been for you to delve that deep, to do a doctorate in the Bible, and where you struggled and where you really saw the life of Jesus differently and who God is to you differently because of it.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. And I just want to take a moment and say, I'm done.
Right?
I finished. I got to remind myself of that every now and then of, I don't have to go back home and work for hours on my thing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jesus. I really love that question because I think it's important to trace the arc of the journey because you get so buried in the detail that it's easy to have your blinders on to what God is doing. But a friend said to me recently, specific to she's in her master's program, and she was saying this also about me walking through my PhD program, that when you're in that level of academic rigor, it's not so much about what you're learning as who you're becoming through the process. And I thought that was profound, and it really resonates with my journey. I would say one of the first places of both struggle and victory was I very quickly started to observe how there was both external and internal pressure to be the expert in the room, to be the expert in my area. And I am naturally a really curious person. And I know that there's a lot I don't know. And so one of the things for me was to be really comfortable that it's okay to be a student in this process. And I don't have to be the expert in the room. I don't have to wear that persona. Here and now I'm putting on my professor hat and my PhD hat, that I actually can still be Kara. I can still be curious. I can still be sassy and playful, and also continuing to become who God is making me to be, both as a woman grounded in his word, as a professor who has a deep passion to see others love God more in his word, but also I can stay curious. I don't have to know everything in order to be competent. And so many in this world, my field and the academic side of it, I think there is a real pressure to be without questions, to know more and more and more. I kind of want to resist that. So that's one thing that I've learned. Another thing was part of my process in the program, which I actually really loved. It was a European model. Right from the beginning, I was doing my research and writing versus being a student in a classroom. So that's more of the European model. Part of that is you are assigned someone who is a top leader in their field. And I was assigned this incredibly brilliant genius of a man who is world renowned for his work in parables, which is what my specialty is as well. And so part of the program was I was to sit with him every week or every other week, and I had to teach him content that, quote, every New Testament scholar should know. And he was really good in that he constantly challenged me and he was always, in a kind way, seeking to find the gaps in my knowledge base. But what that was, it felt like an appointment on a weekly basis to humiliation. And for a long time, over these 3 years, I struggled with that. I would get sick to my stomach. I would dread it. And eventually Jesus was like, do you want to know what I think? And I was like, please, because I'm obviously struggling here. And he said, this is not an appointment to humiliation. This is an appointment that I've set for you, for your pride to die on a weekly basis. So it's an appointment with death to the self-life. And when he reframed it in that way, I don't know that it made it easier, but I could participate in it. Humiliation felt unkind, shaming. But when I actually saw what he was saying, that it's this desire for me to perform well or to execute with perfection. And he was saying, no, just show up as a learner. Be faithful. Walk with me in this. Let your gaps of knowledge be exposed. I'm going to fill that space where your pride used to dwell with humility and more of myself. So that was a really profound reframing that Jesus did for me, and really a rescue, I felt like. And then I think the last thing I would say, what I've learned through this process and who I am becoming, I had to re-invite a part of myself that I think I have seen as very unattractive historically. And I'm going to just kind of describe her as an attorney. I had to re-invite her back to the table and kind of get to become friends with her again, because, again, I really like being curious. I don't want to be the person in the room that thinks they know everything. And so that's a very important value to me is humility. And sometimes it seemed like it would be at odds with other places in me that needed to defend truth or confidently speak. And so I learned how to make friends with her again and invite her in a surrendered way to Jesus to take her place at the table.
Like for you to find out those things and to look at your being humbled down to really just suffering on a weekly of showing up and knowing that you don't know everything, but being told you don't know everything and having it in your face constantly. I know recently I have been talking to some people and really thinking about that idea of knowledge. I know I'm a learner. I always want to learn. I always look things up. And I realized when we were talking about it and just processed it with God, that he was like, it's become an idol for you. If that's an idol, then what does that look like? And what if I surrendered because of that? When I processed it, it takes out the hope and the wisdom and the graciousness of God to show up for you. When you're relying on your own knowledge and relying on learning things, because we do have everything in our fingertips with the internet, and you hear something, I just look it up and I'm like, oh, that's it. And that's it. And it's not the fact that I go to God first, which you should. I mean, for fun stuff, it's okay. But for really life-altering things like medical stuff, and God really convicted me that it's more of a idol, and that's where I spend a lot of my time, is trying to learn the world's view instead of his view. It's convicted me of just being able to put it aside, not necessarily like that I won't try to become better and try to learn, but that his speaking to me needs to come first. Of, I'm bringing this to you. What are you saying to me about that first? Being able to have him speak to my heart, speak to my mind and my spirit over making a decision with his knowledge first. I know you've been in academia for years. You had said that, like, I would love to hear more kind of your viewpoint on that, and being in a Christian university, being in that space.
I think it's really important for the professor to model humility in the midst of knowledge. Paul says that knowledge puffs up. And I think we can all spot that a mile away. This idea that I know things, therefore I am somehow superior, but also I know things and I need God less, just like you're saying. But I think that the way that a classroom works best is this beautiful reciprocity between professor and student, where both are on a journey, especially when we're talking about biblical studies. But both are on a journey into deeper life with God. And there is a real desire to be responsible and accountable to the word of truth. And so learning is good. It's not that knowledge and learning inherently corrupt, but it is, where is our source of life? And also the ability to remain within mystery and, again, humility. For me, that's the kind of environment in which I learn best, is when there is an open invitation to explore, to be curious, to continue learning, to continue growing, to actually make mistakes in the classroom and have conversations that sometimes lead to nowhere. But I agree with you completely that I think that knowledge has become such an idol in our culture. But really, I mean, if you kind of peel back the layers, we really don't know as much as we think we know. And we don't have access to truth as much as we think we have access to information. And so, yeah. And I love your distinction too, Mel, about the difference between knowledge and wisdom, and how God is the giver of wisdom that can't be learned as far as you could study content really, really hard. But wisdom is, I think, a gift cultivated and given by God. And so, again, where is your source? Where are you looking first, second, third, fourth, fifth for life and for truth and for knowledge. And so that is one area that I sense is a part of my calling professionally, is to model that posture. And also that just takes a ton of pressure off of me to have to know everything. I don't know many people who know everything. So I know a lot of people who think they know everything. There's kind of a distinction there.
There is a big distinction. Yes. I love when you said there is a mystery. Are we okay with that mystery? Sometimes we're not. Thinking about being able to be okay with not understanding everything. For me, that's been hard. I think that is something I check myself in when I start thinking about something, and it just seems like a never-ending road. And am I okay with that? I have to go back to, what has Jesus told me? I've had conversations with him about this. He's told me like his promises, and you go back to what he says and who he is characteristically, and it comes back to faith and belief. Because if you are okay with the mystery, then there is no faith. And being able to sit in that and still say, my God is good and my God is true and he knows best, even when I don't, is the root of faith. Not that I don't love knowledge, because there's so much good stuff out there to know and to learn and become who he has asked us to be. As you were talking, I was like, oh, you are Dr. Kara Murphy.
Woohoo!
Woohoo.
Not that that matters.
No. Well, I mean, you had earned it.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Has anybody started calling you Dr. Murphy?
Yeah, actually, my husband and children, they'll throw it out there every now and then just to surprise me, because it's very foreign again. And every time I hear it, I have to be like, no, not really. But I mean, yeah, it's true. I am. There's a certain responsibility in that. But yeah, I'm just so Kara too, that will never change, I hope.
I know you're going to continue to teach, and so you will be called Dr. Murphy, and you'll have to get used to it.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. So let that sit in.
I know.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That you have earned it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Earned that title, which is good. So cool.
Thank you.
So cool.
Mostly, I'm just glad to hear that, because again, that means I'm done. Never going back. Never doing that again. Yeah. And now I'm done. So if that's what that means, I'm all for it.
Yes. It's actually a really good segue of, I do want to hear, now that you've spent years doing this.
Yes.
What are you looking forward to in this life transition of, I'm done with school.
Yes.
And I'm going to continue to teach, but what does that look like for your heart in going forward?
That's so good. So interestingly enough, Mel, I guess it was in March, Jesus laid on my heart that he had a 6-month sabbatical for me starting in March. Now, mind you, I was not done my PhD, and I thought that was a real interesting invitation. And interestingly, also, it turned out to be quite stressful season, not what one would think of for sabbatical. But as I look back on that 6-month season that he had consecrated, what he was showing me that sabbatical is actually, for me, it's not about the circumstances or even the tasks that are involved in your daily life. That sabbatical for me was going to be a different approach to life with him and all of the things he was inviting us to do together. So it was a call to fall backward into his love. And it was a call to approach things with a very different pace and expectation of myself. So what I'm looking forward to now that I am officially out of sabbatical, officially done the PhD program, is actually a life of sabbatical. So I don't know, again, circumstantially, what all of that means, but I do know the pressure's off, performance is off, I can go slow, I can make lots of mistakes, I can take a nap, or
Amen.
2 or 3, should the day call for it.
Yes.
And I am looking forward to the spaciousness of God when we entrust ourselves to Him. So, I mean, I've got some desires, I have dreams, I have things ruminating, but I think, it's more that I'm looking forward to the portion and the pacing of kindness, of sabbatical, of falling backward, of not needing to have an agenda, not needing to make life happen for myself. So this is a new season, and I've learned a lot over the last few years of doing the PhD work, and I think I'm ready. I don't know that I would have been ready, maturity-wise, spiritual maturity, to have this season end prior to it ending.
Interesting.
Because, then there's the great scramble of what next. But I have no urge to scramble. And that tells me something, that maybe what He was working into me is coming to fruition. So I'm really looking forward to that. Another thing is I have 2 daughters. They are gorgeous, beautiful young women inside out. I would agree.
They're wonderful.
Thank you. They're both in high school. And I mean, right off the top of my head, when I think, what am I looking forward to? I am looking forward to being the front row witness to who they are becoming, because who they're becoming is extraordinary. And I feel like right now God is giving me, in each of them, those time-lapse videos where you have a plant and it comes up from the ground, and then you see it sprout some leaves, and then it gets a bud on it, and then the bud opens, and then it's this gorgeous flower. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm watching that in real time with my daughters. They are growing. They have been put in extraordinary circumstances in this season. We've made a major transition, moving to a different part of the country, and their courage and their trust in God is making them more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. And so I'm completely content to sit and watch this play out with God. And I just feel His delight for them. And and also too, I mean, it is so fun being a mom of 2 teenage girls. It's like having a dorm a little bit. I mean, I've been waiting for them to get old enough to check my outfits, be like, does this look all right? And just watching their conversations with their dad, and just the deepening of who they are and the deepening of our family relationship. It's a profound treasure. So looking forward to that.
That's awesome.
More of that.
Yes. Yeah. Our kids and teenagers need us more than we ever realized. That
nobody told us that.
No, right? No, they need us around and present, very present in their teenage years, because it's comfort and it's safety for them, even though they don't say it. And you are available. It's a lot more comforting grounding foundationally for them to become who they need to be. Full believer in that. I'm doing the same with a high schooler as well.
Yes.
So we're sharing in that.
Yes, we are.
It is a really neat time to watch our kids grow.
Yeah.
And
exhausting.
It is exhausting.
I don't want to paint an overly beautiful portrait. It is hard work. If you've got teenagers, just hang in there with me.
It is. And, it is hard. Every day it's hard, but it's also beautiful.
Right.
It's both. You hold both.
Right.
It's that holding both.
The tension.
Yep. And knowing God has them. It's also the mystery, right? Come back to the mystery of God, because I don't know what's going to be in the next few years. And
if I ever feel like the expert in the room, my daughters let me know I'm not. So yeah, in the sweetest way possible. But yeah, they definitely keep you humble.
Oh, yes. Yes, they do. They do. Well, because of just your education and your background and your love for the Lord, I would love to know any books you would recommend, any worship music. I love asking people those questions, just to have a tangible thing to look into.
Yes. That's really good. Well, for several years, I have not been able to read what I want to read. So I'm just going to put that out there right now.
That's true.
I am looking forward to reading what I get to read.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm just going to go with a classic. One I've read many, many times. I'm actually back in it again. The Divine Conspiracy by Dallas Willard.
Oh, so good.
I recommend that book always with a little fear and trembling, because it's for everyone and you can't read it and not be utterly transformed. So, read at your own risk, but also I would describe it as the most comprehensive, approachable, meaty treatise on discipleship that I've ever read outside the scriptures themselves. And Dallas, I call him Uncle Dallas. Uncle Dallas does so much work within the scriptures in this book, it really highlighting the Sermon on the Mount in particular. But he describes what is often so missing and so lacking in our modern day presentations of the gospel message, which is that there is a whole life of God, life with God available. And in fact, that's actually not just for those super Christians out there. It is the gospel message. And that the kingdom that Jesus came to bring is available right now. That the open heavens of God are available right now. And then he walks his readers through what does it look like to actually live the life of Jesus in your life, in a profoundly applicable and challenging way. So I would say The Divine Conspiracy by Dallas Willard. Read at your own risk.
That's amazing, because my college professor gave that to us as a required reading.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I've known about that for a long time. But yeah. I do need to go back to it, though. I've read a couple of, of Dallas. He's just amazing. Like, he is one of the profound Christian authors that if you have not picked up one of his books, highly recommend. Yeah. Highly recommend that.
Yeah. I would say this one, this is another current one that I'm enjoying. It's a little bit on as far as spectrum, you've got Divine Conspiracy on one side. Okay, so this one's on the other spectrum, a little bit lighter, but very enjoyable read is Soul Friendship in the Celtic Tradition by, I think it's Ray Simpson. It's so good. It's so good because it really delves into how Jesus offers soul friendship to us, but then it traces a lot of the early Celtic Christians and how they offered this principle, which was a huge part of early Irish Christianity called the Anam Cara or Soul Friend. And that's something of very personal interest to me. It's something that I feel that God has invited me to become more and more in Anam Cara. So loving reading that book. Worship. I am loving Jess Ray. Have you heard of Jess Ray?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
She had a new album come out. Is that the one? Yeah.
I mean, I just love all of her stuff. But she is a poet. She's got so much soul in her lyrics and her music. And she also does a lot of like the traditional hymns, but in a more contemporary way. Mm-hmm. And so I love Jess Ray. I've been playing her a lot at home, playing her for the girls a lot at home. She's really beautiful soul. Really beautiful.
Yes. She is very good. I am so thankful that we got this time. You are a gem of knowledge and your heart, and you don't meet many people who are willing to do a doctorate on the Bible. It is very surrendering. It is very honorable that your life is so dedicated to our God. And I'm getting teary, but grateful that you are teaching and you have taught our college students, adults, and just inspiring them to do the same and to love God through Scripture, through the knowledge of His love. And so, yeah, I honor you in that, Dr. Kara Murphy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a blessing that I receive and will work to receive more.
Good.
Thank you.
It is all about receiving.
That's right.
Receiving love from God and from others. Mm-hmm. And you are a special one, so thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.